Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Oleski, and welcome to The Upside. We're just waiting for our technical folks to stop our video so we can begin. We have an amazing show for you, and it is my pleasure to introduce our wonderful hosts, Beth Goldsmith, Chair of the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore, and Dr. Scott Rifkin, publisher of JMOR. Beth and Scott, take it away.
Thanks, Jonathan, and welcome again, everyone, to The Upside. This is our virtual show brought to you by the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and JMOR Magazine to keep our Baltimore Jewish community informed during this time of uncertainty. Today, we'll be talking with Tammy Tilson and Kimberly Simonetti of the MatchPro, the Mid-Atlantic's premier upscale dating service. Despite the global pandemic, these two matchmakers are as busy as ever, helping singles find their love connections. From virtual first dates to socially distanced meetups, Tammy and Kimberly have reimagined the dating process to fit the new reality, successfully connecting area singles to their beshert. Scott, please do the introductions.
Thank you, Beth. This is an interesting topic for me. I might have been the worst dater in the history of dating, okay? And I haven't been on a date since I was 19 years old. So it is, having been married to the same woman for almost 40 years now. So I have almost nothing to bring to this conversation. So I'm so glad that we have experts that have joined us. We're thrilled to welcome Tammy Tilson and Kimberly Simonetti to our show. Prior to founding the MatchPro, Tammy spent 20 years as a psychotherapist, specializing in marital relationships. So I'm going to have to ask her later why my wife puts up with me. And she brings her years of experience to the dating process. And as co-founder and master photographer of MatchPro, Kimberly helps people look and feel their best, whether in the photography studio or getting ready for the first date. So clearly she would tell me, A, I should have shaved, and B, I shouldn't have a cone head for a haircut at the moment. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Oh, that's a nice dog. Wait. Before we move forward, what kind of dog is that?
He's a poodle mix. He's a rescue, and they said he's Yorkie poo, but I don't see any Yorkie, but also known as a brat. He's a little bratty.
He's beautiful. Okay, so thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Beth, you want to start off with the first question?
Sure. So Tammy and Kimberly, I know you partner very well, so you will figure out how to partner in your answers as well. And
Right.
Welcome. I'm really excited that you are here to talk about this. Tell me what's going on in the dating scene and how has it changed since the pandemic began?
Okay, well, I'm going to take this one, Beth. Dating has changed tremendously since coronavirus, as you can imagine. But we have noticed that there have been a lot of very positive changes because people are more focused. We feel because people are home and they're not running around, they're more interested in really finding their special someone. They're really, reflecting on their meaning of their life and who's in their life. And they're really pausing and really, taking a look at themselves and where they are. And they seem to be more focused and settled to meet someone, as well as their expectations now seem to be more realistic. So we're actually having a lot of success because people don't seem as flighty or flaky. They're actually sitting and really getting to know their dates online. So it's been really refreshing, and it's also forced them to put the physical relationship on pause completely, so that all they really have to know, get to know is the emotional part of the person. But we are finding that has been really nice because people feel comfortable in their own home being a little more vulnerable, revealing more of themselves in an emotional way. So we're actually surprised but excited about the positive changes that has taken place within the dating world.
That's great to hear. Really great to hear. Kimberly, you want to jump in on that too, or did Tammy cover it all?
I really feel like this is a tool that we're going to be using moving forward. I mean, when you think about Zoom dating, it's certainly more convenient. It's certainly safer. You don't have to worry about, oh, I'm running 10 minutes late, or I got stuck in traffic, or I can't find a parking space, or who's going to be the awkward of, we think guys should pay the bill, especially the first, because you're meeting for coffee or a glass of wine or whatever, but you're removing that aspect out of it. And so it's a more relaxed way of dating. And I think that you really have an option of really getting to know that person, like Tammy had said, in a different way, and have more of an emotional connection at first. And you can still add a little bit of your personality, like for instance, we'll talk about that later, but staging your background. But I think it's a great tool moving forward. And I think we're going to be using the Zoom dating.
Are you seeing a difference in how well guys handle this change versus how women handle this change?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
You take that, Kimberly, or you want me to?
I don't think that, I don't think there's a difference in either of the sexes. I think it's probably about the same. I mean, it's a new reality that we're all trying to embrace and work our way through and find some sort of normalcy with it. So I really don't see a difference in between the sexes.
Well, the only thing I want to add is I think women seem to be a little more cautious about meeting their date in person. So if things are going well online, sometimes the men have been ready to, take a walk or meet them in a park. There have been some women who have been reluctant to expose themselves to, any risk of getting this virus. So that's really the only difference I'm seeing.
And how about by age group? A 20-year-old or a 25-year-old is much more adapted to online finding dates or finding matches versus a 55-year-old who's now had a divorce or a death of a spouse and is now out there. What are you seeing in the difference in age groups in how they're handling this concept of meeting people through Zoom?
Well, 55, they're pretty adept at working the technology, so I'm not seeing it there. But I'd say when we have clients that are 70 and older, they're not as confident using the technology. So sometimes they will choose to have a phone call versus a video call because they may not know how to set up. We try to assist them, but sometimes they get anxious with the technology. So sometimes they prefer the phone call, which is fine. So that's the main difference. 20-year-olds obviously are super savvy in the technology. It's their world, it's their comfort level. The older people, they're a little more, leery. And probably, for the most part, they've had just the phone call.
Let me jump in here, Tammy, because maybe we need to start at the very beginning, which is tell us actually how you and Kimberly work.
Oh, good question. Okay. Well, the way Kimberly and I work is we have our own database that is private to us. We have our own private database that we have accumulated over 6 or 7 years of doing this business. And that is just for us. But the way we work is if somebody fills out a profile in our database, either through our website or they've called us, the next step is we review their profile and we call them immediately, usually within 24 hours. And Kimberly or myself will meet them in person. Now, of course, we're doing video consultations. So we do a very thorough video consultation to learn about their relationship goals, their relationship history, what they've tried up until this point, what obstacles they face, what they're looking for in a partner. And we want to make sure they have realistic expectations. We want to make sure that we're a good fit for each other. It's not just whether they want to hire us to find their special someone, but we have learned not to take people that we feel do not have realistic expectations and are not open to coaching, not open to feedback. because we've been very successful and we like to keep that reputation. So we just, and really we don't want to just take people's money. So if they're not, if they seem, just not the right fit for us, we will keep them as a resource in our database, which means we're not actively searching for them. But if we do have a client who's paid us, who's looking for somebody with their qualities, then they may get lucky and get an introduction. But if somebody signs up with us, meaning they've paid us, they signed a contract, we then start the process of clothing shopping, taking them for date clothing. Sometimes we go to their house. In the past, we've gone to their house just to see kind of what they have, what they don't have. Now we're doing that by video. People will show us their clothes. And then Kimberly, who's been a portrait photographer for 30 years, she has a studio in her house and she'll take their pictures. Then the client has a choice. Do they want us to manage their online dating profile, or do they want to do old-fashioned matchmaking with us? So it really just depends on what services best fit their needs. This is a very personalized process. We're only searching for about 10 people at a time, even though we have thousands in the database. We're only working, it's very close. We set up the dates, we set up the details, the time, when they're going to meet. We call the next day, we get feedback from both sides. Nobody's left hanging or wondering, did he like me? Did she like me? We get that feedback from both sides, which is a very valuable tool in helping our clients learn from what they're doing on dates, because we can all obviously benefit from some, feedback, so that we can perform better the next time. So that's very helpful, and they appreciate it, and it minimizes anxiety because, again, nobody's sitting around wondering for a week, am I going to hear from the other person? So that we continue to introduce our clients one by one. We don't send them 10 people at a time. We send them one person. We see if it works out. If it doesn't work out, we go to the next person. So again, Kimberly and I are both super passionate about what we do. We really become friends with our clients and get to know them know their personality personally, which makes it easier for us to find good matches for them. So did you have anything to add, Kimberly?
Yeah, we invite anybody and everybody to join our database. It does not cost anything to join the database. It is 100% free. Now, if you want to become a member, that's Tammy was referring to all of those other aspects, but like she said, not everybody's a good candidate. Like I was on the phone with somebody this morning, and honestly, she still has a thing for somebody that he doesn't want to move forward in the relationship. And I said, until you're at the point where like that door is shut and you're ready to move on just because it's time emotionally, no, I could put 10 people in front of you that would be perfect, and you won't truly see it because you're holding out possible hope of that other person. So join the database. You never know, but you need to get right with that because it's all timing. You need to be right with that, that decision of finding that right person and being open and having an open heart towards it.
The part that jumped out at me, and Beth always gets mad at me because I go off on tangents. The help with somebody in their look before a date, what they wear. That's really interesting to me. I need you just for going out with my wife so she can stop on the book. But I think that's actually fascinating that you help somebody really with their self-confidence before they go out on that date.
Right.
It's really interesting. A lot of times Tammy and I will take people shopping and do their styling for them because we want them to be able to go to their closet and pull something out and say, this is going to be perfect for this wine date or this coffee date or whatever. And it's ready to go. It's pressed, it's clean, and it's ready on a second's notice. And oftentimes, because as when you feel really good about what you're wearing on the inside, the outside will just, you start to glow. So it's really important that you have those really good, fresh things that that are right. I mean, because not everybody has an unfortunate sense of style, and you need to look more mainstream with it as well. So it's important that we do that, but it shows. And sometimes people actually meet people on their own because they're radiating and they're at the grocery store, that, you know what I mean? They start talking to somebody, and that's happened. That's been some of our success stories in our past. They just get the confidence after that. And that's all it took. But whatever it takes is what it is. And they got what they wanted, was what a committed, loving relationship.
I'm
So,
going to
and
jump in.
Kimberly?
I'm going to jump in, Kimberly, because you just mentioned your success stories, and everybody who's listening wants to hear some of those. So we know why we need to be part of you. So whichever one of you ladies would like to start, tell us
I'll
a fabulous success story.
So we just had 2 last week, but our first one was, we call them one and done. Doesn't always happen. It's lightning in the bottle. A woman came in, she was 60. She looked great out of a really hard 40-year marriage. She didn't need a whole lot of styling because she had some great clothes and she had a great look, but her makeup was really kind of heavy. We worked with her with the makeup artist. We did her session. Literally, with the first person we set her up with, I had met him, I vetted him, and they're living together now. So, we can't guarantee marriage, but they're in a committed relationship. Last week, we had 2 success stories. One involved COVID, the other one didn't. Same thing, we got a guy right with his clothes and all that stuff, and he ended up meeting this amazing woman. And last week, he asked her to marry him, and she said yes. And he, right? And I was so touched. He told his parents, and she hadn't even told her parents yet, but he texted both of us to let us know that she said yes. So we were very touched by that. That's the impact that we have with our clients, because we really care about them and what happens. But going to the COVID success story, so we had a woman that worked for the Federal Reserve. She couldn't date anybody in banking or anything to do with money in any level. So she hired us because she really, couldn't really even be online to really put herself out publicly. She's not allowed to even have a Facebook page because she's in upper management. So she hired us, and immediately I thought she'd be perfect for a gentleman named Jerry that was a client of ours that had timed out. He got in a relationship that didn't work, and then he had timed out, and we're happy to, still work with them even though they've timed out of our program. Any case, Tammy met with her, felt the same thing, that they were kindred spirits and they needed to meet. He wasn't ready because he was sort of dating somebody when Tammy contacted him, and so he wasn't ready. And then we set her up with a couple people, which we knew probably wouldn't work. And then finally Tammy got his ear and said, "You have to meet this woman. We just feel strongly about it." And so they went to Africa. They started dating last fall. They went to Africa January, February-ish, because he does stuff in, I don't know, Peace Corps, but philanthropic kind of things. And he works for a nonprofit. So they went to Africa, had this great trip. He had stayed longer to work. It was before COVID truly hit. She flew through JFK, developed COVID before COVID was a thing yet in February. He finally came back through Dulles, and she had full-blown COVID. He moved in with her to take care of her. And his lease is up in August, and he's not renewing it. He's staying put with her. So that's a success for us. They're still dating, and it's still going strong. So we're really excited for them too.
Thank God he didn't get COVID and die from it. That would have ruined the story.
That would have ruined the story. She's healing, and he was caretaking, and we're so thrilled for both of them. So
very good. And you work with all age groups?
Yes.
So
Go ahead.
Beth and Scott, so we have an audience question here. So
Okay.
we know that they say love is priceless, but one of our audience members would love some guidance about what the investment is to find true love, So could you shed some light on that for our audience member?
Sure. It really depends on to the level of what we need to do for them. Like the lady that I talked to this morning, you can be anywhere from the high twos to, it goes all the way up depending on what we're doing and the length of time that you're with us. But like the lady today, she truly needs an online profile and coaching. So I'd love to sell her a $10,000 membership, but the reality is I don't feel like that's right for her situation. And Tammy and I do not want to be on the other side of this thing where we've oversold something and then we can't deliver. We're more interested. And, we cannot guarantee that it's going to be 100% match for someone. I mean, that would be reckless of us to even think that, because I don't know what's going on in your head, if you've really resolved all of your issues that you've had from past relationships, if there's been any damage. I mean, we don't know any of that. We're only based on, what you're telling us. And for an example, we had this one woman, she was lovely. We both really genuinely liked her. We fixed her up with somebody. They were dating for about 3-4 months. Come to find out, her husband lived in the basement, her ex-husband. So as you can imagine.
Was he locked in or was it voluntary?
I think it was voluntary.
Just checking. You never know.
But you can only imagine how horrified we were. But again, in her situation, I think we were fixing her up with people, but I really think it would have been a better situation had we maybe have done maybe date coaching with her, if she would have been truly honest with us. That's why it's really important to be honest with us. Because you're representing us as well. And if we are making that introduction, we have to make sure that you're ready to go. If you have that chemistry, and that's what it's about, the chemistry and the foundation and the deal breakers are all in check, right?
Thank you.
And I'm going to jump in and get back to the whole COVID situation and health and safety. Tammy, what are some of the questions singles need to ask each other before they meet for the first time?
Well, you just want to make sure, obviously, they haven't been out of the country, in the last month or two, or they haven't been around anybody who's had COVID. Make sure they haven't been on a plane. So anything that's, make sure they don't have a fever. I mean, it's kind of like what the doctors ask now before you go in for the appointment. You have to ask those questions because you don't know this person really well, and the trust isn't necessarily there yet. So you can't assume. And so you need to do your due diligence by asking, where they've been, who they've been around, who they live with, and do they have any symptoms without, seeming like, like you're too neurotic. But yet if you don't ask at all, then you're not necessarily being responsible or taking care of yourself in that way, protecting yourself.
And what do you suggest for a virtual first date? Do you have some suggestions you give people as to what is a cool thing to do for a first date?
Sure. Do you want me to answer this, Kimberly?
Go ahead, you can.
Okay. One thing that we did that was very cute is we suggested that this guy get dinner delivered to the girl he's been talking to online. They had the same meal. So, just say it was Chinese, he delivered her chicken lo mein. He had chicken lo mein. They each had wine set up, and it was set for a certain date. And so it was like having a date in person. And it was romantic, and it was very sweet given the situation that we're in. We've also suggested going for obviously walks, in various pretty parks, or having a picnic. There's also been some, there's some vineyards where they're not overpopulated that are beautiful around Baltimore this time of year, where people are, being socially distant. So that's a great idea. Do you have anything to add, Kimberly?
Yeah, I've actually been collecting, that's my thing. I collect venues and places, like for instance, here locally, the Elkridge Furnace Inn. They have beautiful grounds. They're on about 12 acres in Elkridge. You drive your car separately and you can social distance, and they have little picnic lunches that you can purchase, and of course stay socially distanced and eat right on their grounds, and maybe go for a little walk. So it's kind of romantic and nice. Bike rides are always big. You can do something athletic as opposed to just sitting and eating. you know, like Tammy had said, vineyards. I've collected some really beautiful romantic sort of vineyards that are actually on the newer side that are really spectacular. Tammy, I have to get her to some of them so that she could see, but I actually go to these venues and I look and I make sure that it actually is appropriate. And, you know, some of them you can bring your own picnic lunch or they could bring theirs. And I mean, it's easy just to do carry out and 2 different meals and keep it safe. Yeah. So
I would throw out there the Maryland Zoo, put that in your database. The Maryland Zoo has tons of acreage. People can walk to the zoo a few feet apart.
Yes.
And have a picnic lunch there. And it's just a beautiful setting.
Yes, I agree.
Great idea, Scott.
And we need to support our zoo.
Great idea.
Yeah.
The zoo has reopened for everybody. I put in a plug for them.
Okay, good.
No, that's really neat stuff. I had these weird visions of lockdown hotels. So people wanted to meet. They both agreed to isolate for 2 weeks in like the room across the hall from each other. And after 2 weeks, they get to have lunch together.
There's a TV show like that. A couple TV shows like that now.
Yes.
Yeah. It's the weirdness in my head going around on this conversation. So I'm guilty. Yeah, it's a tough time, and it's got to be toughest for young folks. They're used to lots of social interaction. Their lives are built around it. You know, they're not as able to spend a week or 2 or 3 by themselves or in isolation. It's got to be really tough for that 18 to 25-year-old right now who's really driven by their social needs.
Yeah.
Do you deal much with that population or the typically older folks?
All over.
We typically deal with 25 and up. I feel like 18 to 25 is a little bit too young for us. I feel like they're still exploring and, you know, playing the field and trying to figure out who they are. We really start at 25 plus, but our most popular age group right now has been 30 to 40. People who really, males who really want to get married and start a family. And we love working with that group. Of course, we get plenty of people in their 50s and 60s, but for some reason, the 30s have been really popular right now. I just think people are ready. And when you're ready, you're ready. You're focused, you're in the right headspace. And often these people have tried many other avenues to meet somebody and are extremely frustrated, and it can be very difficult dealing with rejection after rejection. And so as a therapist, I'm there to coach them through that process, to support them emotionally and get their head in the right place so that they feel more confident and less anxious about meeting a potential person.
Have you ever had the person walk in and you afterwards assessed, I can't help this person, they are just not relationship material?
Yes.
You ever get that?
Well, yes, Scott. Scott,
Wait,
yes, but you're
Kimberly,
Scott,
yes.
yes, Scott, yes, and you're already taken, so it's okay.
Oh,
That's great, Pat.
I probably wasn't material back then, but do you get that fairly at any?
It's not that they're not relationship material, because Kimberly and I truly believe there's a lid for every pie. So we truly want to help everyone. I mean, and I really have a passion, and so does Kimberly, for wanting to help everyone. But realistically, some people have to get themselves together first. Some people, if they have a lot of weight to lose, if they're, obese, not that we can't, they're just harder to match. So, we coach them and we set them up with a trainer, a nutritionist, and we get them ready so that, when they're in a better place, we can take them on. But if we find somebody is just, off-putting, and we do light background checks. So if we see anything sketchy at all, yes, we don't take everybody, but most people, thank God, have been lovely to deal with and are very appreciative of the help and the support. And we have really formed, I feel like, lifetime friendships with these people because we work so closely with them and they trust us. They feel comfortable with us after working so closely.
And you get invited to the weddings?
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's very exciting. That's the best part of our job.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yes.
would you both please, I know we've touched on it by Tammy and Kimberly, you've both mentioned a lot of the work you do that's not just here, call this person, or so maybe you would give us a little more. I know Scott introduced you, a little more of your personal background and how you got here. Tammy, because I've known you for just about your entire life, I was even in your graduation from when you got your social work degree. So maybe tell us though a little more about what your experience is and how you came to become the MatchPro.
Okay, that's a great question, Beth.
Thanks.
So it was never planned to be a matchmaker. Never really was on my radar. Never really knew about it or thought about it. I knew about it, but I never came to me as a career. However, I went through divorce back in 2007, and I was pretty new to dating a lot. So I was really actually excited about dating again, and I was reading lots of books, and I actually had a lot of positive experiences. I'm not saying it was all positive. I definitely dealt with the emotional roller coaster, or dealt with rejection, or feeling frustrated, and I really started to identify with people who were not able to even get dates or to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I also, at the same time this was going on, I would notice that some of my clients would present the issue of dating or being single in my therapy office. So combined with my professional experience, combined with my personal experience, led me to think, maybe I should be a dating coach, because I felt drawn to help people in this way. I really felt excited about this subject. I really wanted to help people. I saw how difficult it can be. So I started off as a dating coach, and to my surprise, I was getting calls asking if I was a matchmaker. And my heart kind of dropped. I'm like, oh my God, am I doing the wrong thing? Is that what I'm supposed to be doing? So immediately I started building up a database and marketing myself and getting myself out there. And Kimberly heard about me through a friend that I was, doing this, and she wanted me to refer to her for people who needed great pictures for their online profile. So we formed a connection. We never knew each other. We networked together with our parallel businesses for a couple years. And then as my business was growing, I realized Kimberly would be a great asset, and we joined forces, and that's how the MatchPro began. And it's been an exciting ride. And, we do a lot of events. We're really out there. We're both born and raised here. We're both, walking the streets, so to speak, always looking. I mean, we have a lot of chutzpah. I'm at the dry cleaners. I'm talking to the guy next to me. I find out he's single. I'm giving out my cards. We are everywhere. And we don't stop at anything because we're so focused on trying to find these people. And the reality is, people in Baltimore think they know everybody, okay? But I meet new quality people every day. I didn't know Kimberly. She didn't know me. I didn't know any of her friends. She didn't know my friends. So people, use that as like an excuse to not being able to, find that person. And I just believe there's a lot of good people out there, and it starts with having a good attitude and believing there's an abundance of quality people if you're in the right mindset with realistic expectations. But that's how the MatchPro, began, and we've evolved and, grown our database, and we work with affiliates from around the country, even around the world, who also, we help each other in terms of matching our people.
Beth and Scott, I have two final questions from the audience, and they're the same question. How about that? So Tammy and Kimberly, two audience members want to know, is your database local only, or is it national?
It's international as well. We actually had a woman recently from, I believe, the Czech Republic that wanted to join our database because she was interested in meeting American men. And I actually Zoomed with her. So mainly it's local, but it's not just local. And today the woman I talked to is from like the Longwood Gardens area, and she's from Pennsylvania. So To say that it's only local, absolutely not. And we work a lot with our brother and sister matchmakers in the DC area and in Philly. So we're connected. We're part of a couple different associations with national and international matchmakers. So we have a fairly wide reach, but we really try to define it with our people. Like, we work very closely with a Japanese matchmaker, and if we have a client that would like to have a Japanese introduction, we do our due diligence with that matchmaker.
And I actually have one last question. This one came from Facebook. So here's an interesting question. Do you help folks make matches who are in the LGBTQ community?
Yes, we don't have a lot in our database that per se, but we do have a handful. But we do also work with matchmakers that specialize in that. We are embracing of that community, and we love that community. Personally,
Wonderful.
have family and friends, but we just don't have a lot of people, and I wouldn't want to take their money if we don't have someone we can introduce them to. But absolutely, we would help them.
Great. Beth and Scott, we'll turn it back over to you all to wrap us up here.
Well, maybe if just one last thing, if Kimberly and Tammy could give us their contact information so that you're nice enough to spend half an hour with us. Let's do a little plug for your business as well.
Sure. So our phone number, which we will call you back within, an hour or two, is 410-773-9585. Our website is thematchpro.com. And my email is tammy@thematchpro.com, and Kimberly's is kimberly@thematchpro.com. But we are happy to just, to talk with you, meet with you, do a Zoom, whatever you want.
So when you get hundreds of more clients because of this group, there's about 3,000 people do see this. And so when you get hundreds more, Beth and I expect checks, just so you know.
Okay.
As long as they pay us, we're good.
But I think Beth, on behalf of Associated, might call you, so that's okay. But thank you so much, and Beth, you want to close us out?
Thank you, Scott. And thank you so much. I will just give you a 1 second, personal thing. I was a member, or I guess I am a member of the database. I did have a lovely connection with a very prominent, successful man from Washington. It didn't turn into a love connection, but the entire thing was a great experience. And so I can vouch for just how professional and how lovely this service is and can be for everyone. So I encourage everyone out there, tell your friends, if they're not live on right now, they may have parents who are in need of this service. They may have children who are in need of this service. And the MatchPro is there to help everyone. So thanks again, Tammy and Kimberly.
Thank you.
And I want to tell everyone also to remember to continue to visit associated.org and jmoreliving.com for more information, stories, and resources, and sign up for the weekly newsletter. And Jonathan, I think you want to tell us about our next show on July 28th at noon.
Yep. Thanks, Beth. So just before we went on, Baltimore City Council President Brandon Scott's office confirmed that he will be joining us next Tuesday to talk about issues facing the city and how the city is dealing with COVID. So join us next Tuesday.
And what is his next job, most likely?
Well, he's running for mayor of Baltimore City.
In a 92% Democratic city. So he's likely to be our next mayor.
I would think there's a high probability. So join us next Tuesday to hear Baltimore City Council President Brandon Scott. Tammy, Kimberly, thank you all so much, and everyone be safe and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Call us.